rather than pushing people towards a goal. A pull style of management influence attracts and energizes people to enroll in an exciting vision of the future. It motivates through identification rather than through rewards and punishment. Leaders articulate and embody the ideals towards which the organization strides. Leaders manage the culture. Lou Platt, the president and CEO of Hewlett-Packard, was recently asked what he considered his job to be. He replied that 75% of his job was managing the Hewlett-Packard culture. The most powerful contextual influence at Hewlett-Packard is something simply called the Hewlett-Packard way. Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard were asked what they considered was the most important product of the Hewlett-Packard company. They answered, the Hewlett-Packard company. Tom Hoffmann and I wholeheartedly recommend Built to Last by James Collins and Jerry Porras as a book that will help you build on many of the ideas presented in today's program. The process of visioning organizational success absolutely demands that we apply ourselves to the challenges of organizational culture, design, and implementation. Our most fundamental role as leaders and as managers is to pay attention to the contextual forces shaping the way in which people work together to produce results. Success requires that we develop and articulate a vision that uplifts the human spirit, a vision that gives wings to people's imagination and creativity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emery. Let us continue with the second question and answer session. The first question is from la Universidad Tecnológica Tula Tepeji en Tula de Allende en el estado de Hidalgo, en México. What should one consider in order to have all the people in the organization articulate the vision toward excellence?
Two-part question. Tom.
Yes. Mr. Hoffman, why don't you start?
Okay. As I think about the vision toward excellence, excellence in and of itself is more of a core belief and value that the organization can establish. And so excellence becomes the way in which you're going to achieve your vision. And Stewart?
Excellence, if it's going to be held as a value and people are going to deliver against it, requires that everybody in the organization has a conversation first with themselves and then with each other about what excellence would be in their area of responsibility. So they would give other people a word picture of what it would look like in their area of responsibility, in their area of work, if they achieved excellence, and have people agree with that and support them in that endeavor. Everybody needs to do that.
Thank you. Our next question is from la Federación Nacional de Comerciantes en Medellín, Colombia. We haven't made the contact. We'll take another question. This call is from el Instituto Politécnico Nacional de Educación Continua en México, el Distrito Federal. Let us try another question. This time from the Organización Diosnel, Asunción, Paraguay.
Hola, aló. No entra la llamada al estudio. No hay sonido.
Let us take a question
A tomar otra pregunta
from
de
la Federación
la
Nacional
Federación Nacional de
Comerciantes,
Comerciantes.
Medellín,
A ver, Medellín,
Colombia.
Colombia.
Who creates
¿Quién
the vision
crea la visión?
for the organization? Mr. Hoffmann?
The people who create the vision generally are the leaders. However, once again, not only is it the leaders articulating the vision, but getting information from the people within the organization. So while anyone can create it, the responsibility for ultimately gathering it together and articulating it are the leaders of the organization.
Mr. Emery?
Yet the challenge for the leadership is that they have to communicate backwards and forwards with their people, so the people who weren't part of creating the vision can feel ownership for the vision while they didn't have authorship for the vision. So in a leader, we call this ability vision bridging, that they can build a bridge from their own internal compelling picture of the future out to the people so they can engage in it, get involved in it, and act on it.
Thank you. Our next question is from la Universidad Privada Boliviana, Cochabamba, in Bolivia. Help me understand what you mean when you say the strategies ought to flow from the core values and beliefs and purpose. Mr. Hoffmann?
Okay. As you think of the strategies and the tactics, they need to be aligned with the purpose of where you're going and the mission of what you're trying to achieve. And those things together, as we said before, are part of the components of vision. Vision creates the context in which you make the decisions. So every strategy ought to be tested against your core values and purpose, and every tactic or strategy you undertake ought to be tested as well. Without this alignment, people do not achieve clarity of understanding and do not have the context in which to make decisions in their everyday business lives.
Mr. Emery, do you have anything you'd like to add to the answer that Mr. Hoffmann has given?
Yes, I'd just like to underscore the importance of alignment. A recent conversation with Jim Collins, he said, as he explores what's next on Built to Last, he gets really clear that the message is alignment, alignment, alignment. Every action, every non-action, every promise, every commitment that's made in the system needs to be aligned to the vision, to the purpose, to the mission, to the values. So people are really clear about the messaging.
Thank you. Our next question is from Los Centros de Capacitación para el Trabajo Industrial, CECATI, número 191, en Tecate, Baja California, Mexico. How do you learn whether the organization is open to and has the ability to change? Mr. Emery, why don't you start with this?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. In fact, it's possible to measure this. There are a number of organizations, including ourselves, who have very good ways of measuring corporate cultures and the traits and the values in a corporate culture and make very sound predictions of whether or not change is easily possible. The answer beyond that is very complex. It's simply important to know that it is possible and that there are organizations that have this kind of research and can help you if this is something you want to do.
Thank you. Our next question is from el Instituto Politécnico Nacional de Educación Continua en el Distrito Federal de México.
México, adelante.
¿Cómo lograr
How can you achieve
cautivar o convencer a un microempresario
convincing a small enterprise entrepreneur and whose mind frame is a family setup and who doesn't want to change and who's already set in his ways and is not open to changes? How can we convince him to reorganize his organization and to start his company into the vision, mission, and all the objectives and projections that will help him move forward toward where he wants to go?
Mr. Hoffman?
I think there's a couple of ways of approaching that question. One is that even though it's a family business, a fundamental question is, do they want to be successful over time? So that's the first question. I think the second question is that as we look at these pieces of information and data that are founded on a lot of research, they're really just tools in how to become more effective. And so any artist, any craftsman uses the tools that are available for them in a way that will allow them to be most successful and get their end product or achieve their vision. And so I would suggest, even though it's a family, maybe doesn't want to change, are they in fact, or can we ask them the question, do you have the tools to be most effective? And these are just part of that tool set.
Mr. Emery, would you like to add to that?
Yes, there's an old saying that no person sets aside their old ways of doing things for the new unless they personally see the need for it. So I think it's an educational challenge. We have to take a patriarchal or matriarchal head of a business and help them understand the consequences of not changing. When they're clear and believe the consequences of not changing are highly undesirable, then they will set aside their old ways for the new, unless they have no interest in continuing in business, to Tom's point.
Thank you. Our next question is from la Comisión Federal de Electricidad, SECAP, en el Distrito Federal, México.
Para felicitar a los exponentes por la visión que tienen de la ética. La filosofía de la calidad total es la perfección del bien o servicio
Of the good or service to satisfy the
la
customer.
competencia,
And competition
la colaboración.
and cooperation, where would you place that in this
Muchas
context?
gracias.
Where do you place competition in this context and cooperation?
Mr. Emery?
So when we talked about competition earlier, we made the distinction between eliminating internal competition and now we talk about external competition. But truly, the word compete literally means to find the best in ourselves, working with other people who have the same commitment to finding the best in themselves. So if we stop thinking about the competition as somebody to be beaten or an organization to be beaten, but look to ourselves and say, how can we tomorrow do better than we did today? How can we tomorrow satisfy our customers more completely than we did today? That's the question to ask. And a question to ask not only ourselves, but to reach out to our customer. I find we often think of our customer as out there, we're here, and that there's a separation between us. The truth there is, we must think of the customer as part of our family, as part of our organization, and have this dialogue going and commit ourselves to having them have an excellent experience.
But thank you very much. We have one last question to get. It is coming from la Universidad Autónoma del Estado de México, Toluca, en el Estado de México.
Adelante, Universidad Autónoma.
Gracias.
Thank you. Before
Quiero darle las gracias por este
ending,
espacio.
thank you so much for this opportunity, and I also want to thank all of the experts,
Mandarles un cordial
and
saludo
I would like
de los
to
universitarios
give
del
you
Estado
the
de
greetings
México.
from all of the university
La
students
pregunta
here
es
in
la
Mexico.
siguiente. ¿Cuál es la
Our
mejor
question
forma
is,
de
what is the
conciliar
best way to
estrategias
reconcile
entre los
strategies
líderes de
between
una
the
empresa
leaders of one
para el buen
enterprise
desarrollo en ella?
and for it to have a
Gracias.
good development, a good unfoldment?
Mr. Hoffman?
Okay, as we think of the strategies, the first test is, does it support the purpose and the vision? And then secondly, are the strategies clear and related to the capabilities of the organization? those will be the ones that will be successful.
Thank you for your excellent questions, but we've run out of time. Thank you, Mr. Hoffmann, Mr. Emery. We hope that you have enjoyed participating in this video conference. We will continue transmitting programs on the latest in global competitiveness. We invite you to participate on December 4th, the last program of our 1997 series, entitled Strategies for Client Service Across Borders: How to Measure and Assure Satisfaction. For additional information on the International Training Center's programs, please consult your participants' manuals. Also, if you are interested in participating in training programs which will be offered by the International Training Center, please contact the Center by letter, phone, fax, or email. On behalf of all of us who collaborate with the International Training Center, I thank you for your participation and interest in today's program. Thank you, and see you soon.